You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and we'll be talking about Dagbon. Have we really come to the end of the road as far as the fighting and the conflicts over there, over the chieftancy matter? Is it really over yet? As a reporter, I follow the eminent chiefs, and I sat in their deliberations every day. And we got to a point you could see how the tempers were rising, how at certain times the Otumfuo, Osei the second Asante Hene, broke and went into chambers and had to try and calm things down, and then went through all the ups and downs and the motions, and eventually were told, here is the roadmap. That roadmap that appeared to have been achieved sometime, was it in 2007, 6, thereabout, 6? That roadmap never worked. Why? Because some people have a suspicion that to perform a funeral in the Bewa Palace, for which they must take turns, one group will get in there and will never surrender. How that has dragged us all this while and continue to, fuel the conflicts. Let's pray for salvation in that area. Now, some messages on the NDC and its Congress. Dr. Charles Rekobrobe says, whoever plotted the Edu Asari debacle knew they would get away, unquote, with it, because we prefer, quote, accommodation, unquote, to legality, and we always find comfort in, quote, Famanyami. So that's Charles Rekobrobe with that message. Also, loads of the messages I'm going to read out here, and this one from Eja Adam. He says, we, New Patriotic Party, were able to collate our results during election 2016 before the ruling NDC party. Clearly, the NDC failed to have learnt anything from that process and can't even manage to organize their own internal national executive elections. Instead of investing in technology, they were busy exhibiting their incompetence and sharing goodies to delegates. So, will they share goodies for Ghanaians to vote for them? Regardless, the New Patriotic Party will circumvent in the next polls. Okay. Musa Abator in Kumasi says that those propagating non-inclusion of Voltarians in the newly elected executives of the NDC are engaging in shallow argument. I am optimistic that the right people have been chosen to take the party to the Flagstaff House. It's called Jubilee House, please. Come 2020. The fact that you are NDC doesn't change the fact that the name has changed. As Chairman Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo said, there are no winners nor losers, so MPP should continue making noise. We'll meet them on the battlegrounds. Okay, that's a familiar terrain with you guys, isn't it? Ibrahim Kopa in Tamale says, if the NDC is any serious and disciplined political party, then I expect it to discipline Madam Anita Disoso for imputing ethnic motives on the composition of the NDC national executives. Can you imagine if the NPP had asked why there are not accounts in the leadership of the NPP? Let us condemn these unnecessary ethnicity in our body politic. Eliasu in Tamale says, clearly the mighty and highest bidders won in the NDC primaries. I suspect they hatched plans at hounding the voter clique of the party, which clearly worked perfectly. The so-called World Bank has turned into DKM. Did you see the monies and goodies that were being shared? Social Democrats sharing monies as if there was no tomorrow. Akwesi Obeng in Ejuso Bisasi says NDC delegates voted for people with sharp teeth, but the 2020 elections will be issues-based, not insults. Which of the NDC national executive was not in the 2016 campaign team? Otumfuo was vice chairman and director of operations. Esedun Ketia was general secretary. Akamba was deputy organizer, and Sami Jemfi was a leader of a group which was campaigning in the Ashanti region for 1 million votes for the NDC. At the end of the day, their votes were reduced to, so none of them is a threat to the NPP. And Sami Jemfi, the party's new communications officer, I've listened to him, particularly after he was elected, and it's clear that the overwhelming vote they gave him was justified. Was justified. Yeah. Right. Okay. Now, just a couple more before we go to Dagbon, because we'll spend quite a bit of time on Dagbon. Nana Hesse Ojiri, you won't mind your own business, right? Okay. He says James Agalga must not attempt to water down this Justice Yabua, aka Eduasare issue. At every election, all aspirants do have agents at the printing house. The NDC must first tell us if there was an agent or there were agents of the aspirants at the printing house. If not, what happened was a clear mafia tactic. Okay, so some mafia tactic there. Thank you for that message also. I am not against Kweku. I am not surprised that Kweku Bako is today against the proposal for the establishment of a ballot protection unit. He sees nothing wrong with the invisible forces. Really? Oh. Have you been listening to Kweku? Okay, so let's end the message here. Thank you very much for all of those messages. No, let me take this from Atuedu in Evans, Georgia. Okay, you say that my good friend Rahim is from Yendi. My other friends, Mauli, Nyatuame, and Kofi Akodo are from the Volta region. I am from Edum Bonso. I am worried when political party leaders play the ethnic card. Please, let's stop it. That's Dr. Atuedu from Evans, Georgia. Just two more here. Interesting comments. Let me share them with you because they are important. Citizen Dennis says that Kweku Bako should not make it seem like only the NDC is to be faulted for the ethnocentric comments and tendencies. Indeed, and in fact, the sitting president has once used the phrase "Yen Akamfo." That aside, NPP activists are also often referred to the NDC as Ayigbefo. Okay.
Nobody said yeah.
And of course,
it's not true.
People have been against that.
Was saying yeah Akamfo. It should be precise.
Okay. So this is my very final one from Dani Kwejo Ampofo. He says that watching Newsfile live from Dallas, Texas. Congratulations to the NDC for the successful triple track elections, which resulted in their new leadership. Same old horses who were helpless in 2016 elections, unfortunately, cannot bring back the party to power in 2020. Please tell Sami Jemfi to take time on his recent shots and bumps, because the journey to the Jubilee House is really long, winding. I want him to take it easy. Okay, thank you very much. Now let's go to Dagbon. By going to the Jubilee House, where there was a stool and there were skins this week.
The bone of contention has been whether regions can play a part in the funeral of Yana. And that also has come up. In fact, after our meeting, there were issues raised by the representatives of the regent of Dagbon, and then the Kugana. I don't know where they were. Are the representatives of Kugana here? Because I asked for them to come. Prime Minister, you didn't get them? Or they refused to come? They said they are sick. All right. And he said he was sick, so he was not coming. Okay. Because after this, we will have to take very serious decisions on those people, because I cannot countenance anyone holding Dagbon to ransom or this country to ransom because of their personal issues. Dagbon is at peace. All the elders here are here, they are here. And those are the elders who matter in Dagbon. The regent was not envisaged to be a Yana. He was supposed to be a regent of Dagbon for a period, so that the processes for the funeral of Na Muhammadu and Na Yakubu could go on, and then we have a Yana. And then for him to have taken that position and entrenched, because this committee invited him a couple of times to come to meet us, so that we could discuss his concerns. And that we could factor that into our decisions that we could do. And so we shall still engage them, the processes for the new Yana, till we get a new Yana. And no, but let me put it on record that at no time has any president or party or political party brought any influence at all on this committee. None of them. You have not brought any pressure on us to resolve this. President Akufo didn't do that. President Mills didn't do that. And I wouldn't allow, sure, they know I would never allow anyone to bring pressure on me to settle issues on whether the president likes it this way or not. That no one can force me to do it. So we've come to this conclusion based on the customary and traditional customs and traditions of Dagbon. And we want to assure you that we'll continue through that till we get a new Yana.
Okay, so Otumfuo 82 II has been the one who has been leading the Eminent Chiefs set up by President Akufo 2005, was it? Yep. To look at how to resolve the matters that have come to Dagbon. And so when I said stew and skinks at the Jubilee House, I was referring to Otumfuo and the chiefs, eminent chiefs, who were also there. Of course, there were other stools. So they were sitting there as well. So you will know that the Dagbon chieftaincy crisis predates modern Ghana and its current political institutions. The crisis revolves around the two family lines or gates to the kingship, the Abudu and the Andani families, which have pitted children from the same royal ancestry against each other in an internecine conflict for the past 200 years. A significant episode in this struggle was the 27th March 2002 murder of the Yana Yakubu Andani II, the ruler of Ghana's the Dagbon Kingdom, that's the Dagomba, along with more than 40 other high-profile individuals who served and advised in the palace. So this is the current situation that has brought us to this point. So 2002, 27th of March, up to today. And that summary I read to you is by the West African Civil Society Institute that has done a huge document, very useful on this. Now, let me start with Kweku.
Well,
have we come to the end of the road?
Hopefully. We can only hope, because this has been too protracted. And as you indicated, 2006, there was a roadmap.
Right.
Reading that particular roadmap and comparing it to this one, very slight
same
difference, almost the same.
Yeah.
You know, so one should be cautiously optimistic, let me be honest with you. But it's a very important part of this country, very critical, and a great people. no doubt about it. So if we are unable to bring them on board in terms of unison, to accelerate this country's development, we'll be in trouble. And that's why I think the state, including all administrations that have come since 2002, have been committed to finding a lasting peace. I'm not suggesting for a moment that 2002 was the only time we had an explosion there. We all know the history.
Yeah.
Somewhere in 1969, a lot of people died there.
A similar situation of murder. Yeah.
Yes.
That was about 30 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's something that really worries me. But I'm hoping that the efforts of the three eminent chiefs will lead us to a peaceful settlement of the situation. I don't really know much about the history of the people as such, but since they are part of this great nation, one is committed. Because of that, I think that we should be moderate in how we, discuss the issues, particularly those involved as well as those of us outside, in dealing with the issues. Even if there are some contradictions here and there, it depends on how you, articulate those things. Otherwise it could inflame passions, because I hear there are still some few dissenting voices who are raising issues about even this process, who are raising red flags relative to discrimination or unfairness.
Right.
And so we've got to be very careful how even those voices are handled, in a way that it won't create any tensions. I think the security services too must be on alert even now, in spite of the seeming, calmness and things. They should strengthen the intelligence gathering and make sure that everything is on course. I'm hoping that they will be able to scale the walls relative, because if I read the 2016, the same problems remain. They've done the same thing about when the funeral of the Mahamadou
Yakubu
should come. That's supposed to come first.
Yes.
And then the Yana Yakubu Andani comes second. All those things are basically a repetition. What was it that was missing? I think sincerity, confidence. People didn't believe in the other. That mutual distrust wasn't there. Have we been able to create a critical mass of that now? I'm hoping so. Otherwise, you see, we've had commissions of inquiries over the years. The Supreme Court has also intervened. We've had mediation
decrees. We had decrees.
Tampon, PNDC. I have a PNDC memorandum of an agreement here. It's dated somewhere. Where did they say? This is dated 14th day of August 1987. After a Supreme Court ruling, they came together. Many good things have happened, and yet they all vanished into thin air. So if this fails, I'm sure we'll be in real trouble. I'm praying that the best comes out of this.
Okay, so you take a breather. I get to Martin Pebu, and Martin, I can see is opening a 1960-something law report. And Kweku was first making a reference to 9th September 1969, when there was a similar situation where there was a murder of the Yana and 33.
69?
33.
Yes, 69.
Yeah.
No, but
and indeed,
69,
lawyer
the Yana was not murdered.
No, yeah,
it was
murder,
elders.
murder of
some
33.
Elders of
33
the royal,
of the Adegbewa Palace.
Yes,
that's right.
And so, those who have a certain position, and which is all of this, you have seen how it is along party lines. They are saying, okay, this happened around the Buzia period, and then when was the Yana also murdered? Okay, 2002. And so they have their own permutations about all of this, but I suppose we seem to be surmounting that. Do you think that's where we are getting to?
Well, very difficult to say that is it, but I also share the sentiments that we should be hopeful. We should be hopeful, but beneath it, I've been trying to understand, talking to one or two persons, and the foremost problem is what you rightly stated. There is suspicion, very deep-seated suspicion that if the roadmap is adhered to, that is to say the Abudus should enter and perform the rites first, they may not come out. That's the suspicion, and so it didn't start today. It's been there for all these decades. So I'm thinking that then, apart from the roadmap, maybe the president, the Otumfuo, and all the structures, the Peace Council, they should come out and give not just assurances, but perhaps set out practical steps that would assure the Andanis that certainly when the Abudus go in to perform the funeral rites, they would leave the palace. You say, yes, so if there is, and if it's done in such an open, very transparent manner, that practical steps, and if you ask me practical steps, there was this morning I was trying to research this thing, Kwame Nkrumah's time, though it has its own negative consequences. There was this time that Ochehene didn't accept the appeal commissioner's findings and the rest. Yeah, they had to use policemen and all that. Okay, yes, so I'm looking at the positive side of it, that look, if parties are told that the state has the force, the state can use force to bring out the Abudus if they fail to come out, and if this is done and assured openly and something like in the form of this memorandum that was done, if it's done, I think it will move the process forward. If we don't have those practical steps to assure the Abudus, the Andanis, that if the Abudus go in first, they will come out, it doesn't look like we'll go any further, because this is not too different from 2006. So ask ourselves, yes, the only other thing is that naturally with time there is fatigue. There is fatigue. But you can't rely on fatigue to finally solve the problem. That is to say, if they get tired, they will just accept the findings of the, what do you call it? Or just accept the roadmap, you see. And Otumfuo was mentioning the issue of the regent. You see, I understand that, even from the Supreme Court decision, to become Yana, it comes from 3 of the towns, okay? Yes, Mion, then Savlugu, and then Karaga. So my understanding is that currently, it's only the Yona, that's Savlugu, that's a chief.
Correct.
So Mion is vacant, and then Karaga is also vacant. So my understanding is that it means that if the, what do you call it? If we're to go on with the current process, that is to say the Abudus should perform theirs, and then after the Andanis will go in, then it means that because the next Yana must necessarily come from one of those towns, then it means that automatically it will go to the current Savlugu chief. We call him Yona, locally. So I think that is a problem, because generally he, because the ex-Yana has a son being the current regent, so they would have thought that he should maybe go to one of these other towns, so that when it comes to the selection, then he may be in good stead to be able to become Yana. But in the current state of affairs, it means that he's excluded. And once he's excluded, it means that automatically he may go to the chief of Savlugu, and that is a very serious underlying problem. So perhaps we should look at it. So meaning that some of the persons who have given me education on this are saying that it means that the funerals of the Karaga chief and that of Mion must first be performed, so that they would then have substantive chiefs in those towns. Then they can go ahead with the performance of the
Yana excuse those people.
Yeah, you wait. Finish. Let him come in. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So you say, so that without this, then, but the current Kampakuyana, he enskinned the Savlugu chief. Yeah, he enskinned. He's allowed to. So he enskinned the current Savlugu chief, who is his own, is our uncle. So you see that there are those, so the condition precedents, as we say, in matters of culture and all this, I think there can be a middle ground. That's why I said the foremost one, when you are presenting the problem in terms of the scale of preference, I think the foremost problem is about the deep-seated distrust, the deep-seated fear that if the Abudus go in to perform the funeral rites first, they will not leave the palace. That's the number one. I think that one ranks ahead of the Myong issue and then the Karaga one. But at least we are trying to bring out some of the underlying problems that may stultify this roadmap. You say, yes, so if we solve number one, perhaps number two, definitely the parties may be willing to compromise. You say, so that is the way to look at it. So definitely, this will call for more stakeholder engagements, more education about it, because that is one of the surest ways to get the necessary buy-in. Because, and also understand, and very critical also, is the fact that there's this other issue that, you know, though the roadmap says that the Abudus should go in and perform the funeral rites of their deceased brother first, the ex-Yana, the issue is that, you know, in the Supreme Court judgment, it was stated that the enskinment of Abdullahi was void. You see it, yes, because he had been selected by a selection committee that the Supreme Court said, no, that is void, that it should have come from the 4 towns, the kingmakers. So we are talking about Patina, those other ones. So the problem is that they say the use of the word void means that he had never become Yana. But the issue too is that when you read the judgment, the Supreme Court ended by saying that no matter how a person ceases to be a Yana, he should be regarded as a former Yana. Yes, that no matter how a person ceases to be a Yana, he should be regarded as a former Yana, and that his sons qualify to be appointed to one of the 3 towns where a Yana is picked from. That is to say, Myong, Karaga, and then Savlugu. You say, so, I mean, on the face of it, ordinarily, I should think that even though they said Abdullah's enskinment was void, that final statement that no matter how he ceased to be a Yana, he should be regarded as a former Yana, one would have thought that it should suffice. But on the ground, that is not the situation. So as we sit here, understand there is a case in the Court of Appeal where they are challenging this particular issue, that if you say the enskinment was void, how in the same breath would you then say that he should be regarded as a former Yana? So understand that has to be settled too first. So yes, it has to be settled.
Can I bring this? If you
It's
look
a
at the
real bone of contention.
Yes.
The first paragraph says cognizance of the decision of the Supreme Court to the effect that the late Yana Muhammadu should be regarded as a former Yana, and that his sons be regarded as sons of Yana, and that they do qualify to contest for the Gates Kings of Myong, Karaga, and Savlugu, which decision the eminent kings and all the parties accept. Back in 2006, it appears there was a compromise by all parties, including the chiefs, that this should be so.
But right now, there's a decision, there's a case in the Court of Appeal where it borders on the meaning of saying that it's void. Yes, there's a case in the Court of Appeal. So some are even
and does it affect the Supreme Court ruling?
No, it cannot.
Practical. So what they're saying is that because there was an attempt, so they're saying that they want to clarify. Yes, it should not ordinarily. So I'm not lawyer in it, so I won't understand. But I know that there's a case.
I need some education.
Yes.
I need some education because I'm getting a little confused. And we are putting this in the public domain.
Right.
You know, if a case is decided by the National House of Chiefs and you're not satisfied, you go straight to the Supreme Court.
That's right.
How has it ended up in the Court of Appeal?
So it means that that matter is not framed as a chieftaincy matter.
Exactly. Exactly.
Interesting.
Then
Yeah.
that would be
If it
very
is framed as a chieftaincy matter,
because I don't see
then
how a
it
Court
will
of
go
Appeal
straight to
can be seized
Supreme
with
Court.
jurisdiction to handle
Chieftaincy.
chieftaincy.
No.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
not framed as such. So it's about the funeral rights. It came from the High Court. It came. I saw it about 2 years ago. Yes, there was. Yes, it came from the
very
High Court,
novel.
and now it's in the Court of Appeal. So in the High Court, one party wasn't happy because of the fact that the Supreme Court has said the enskinment was void. So they are appealing because there was an attempt to have the funeral rites, initiate processes for having the funeral rites conducted. So currently, the case is in the Court of Appeal. At the time I saw it, an appeal had been filed, and they were preparing to, you know, compile the record for the Court of Appeal to hear.
So that would be very strange for the Court of Appeal to tell us the meaning of a Supreme Court decision.
That's one of, no, they are not saying, they are not capturing it as tell the meaning. They were going to take the steps to have the funeral done, and there were some
so just hold on briefly, and I'll continue from James. So the progress that was made up to 2006 was that there was the burial at the Gbewa Palace of Muhammadu Abdullahi IV, correct? Now it is left with the funeral rites. And the questions are about whether or not he should receive a treatment as
a yana.
And that is what the other gate feels absolutely should not be allowed. Do you get the impression that they have now been able to come to a compromise on that issue? Because that is the only issue that has kept this matter prolonging this while.
Samson, the issue surrounding the crisis in Yendi is one that is very dear to me. Why? Because I have a lot of attachment with Yendi.
Okay.
Yendi is the town my late father started his working life from.
Okay.
And so he easily related with the two factions, members of the two royal gates, very well. But having said that, this is a discussion that has taken a national dimension, so it's a national issue. And ordinarily, I wouldn't want to take part in any conversation which has to do with the Yendi crisis, but I would attempt to say a few words. Look, I cannot but agree with Martin. His narrative is very apt. He makes reference to the Supreme Court judgment, and that is the heart of the problem. The Supreme Court judgment did not help matters. And so when a Supreme Court says the eskinement of a yana was unconstitutional per the customs and constitution of Dagbon, but in the same breath, after espousing the principle of nullity, the same court goes on to say, however, he must be treated as a former yana, and that when he dies, he should be buried as a yana, accorded the status and treatment as a yana, so that his descendants can ascend to the Nam of Yendi. Immediately, that is a recipe for chaos. And I think that that is what resulted in the protracted crisis that we have seen over the years, which eventually resulted in the unfortunate incident which happened in Yendi in 2002. But Samson, having said that, I would appeal to the two sides to forgive one another. After all, they have a common ancestry. They all trace their lineage to Na Yakubu Andani the first. Okay, so they are children of the same man. But you see, after the murder of the yana, the government instituted the Waku Commission to, first of all, identify the perpetrators of that gruesome murder in Yendi in 2002. That was the main objective, even though there were other ancillary issues that the Waku Commission was mandated to resolve. Something we need to ask ourselves from that time up till now, and I don't want to single out any political party for blame. We don't have to politicize this matter. I think that the cardinal reason for the setting up of that commission never saw the day of light. As we speak, have we been able to bring the perpetrators of the gruesome murder of the yana and his followers to justice? No. The two who were tried clearly were acquitted, and for good reason. Justice Apa, when he appeared before Parliament, clearly had a lot to say about that trial. So you see, people are living in pain. And not until something is done, justice is handed out to the relatives of those who lost their lives, would continue to have issues anytime the Yendi crisis comes to the fore and we have to discuss it. But I am happy.
Ignore the fact that there was a second
attempt. Yes, absolutely. It didn't also yield. Yes, Justice Ayebi was the one who presided over that trial.
One of the deputy ministers of Foreign Affairs,
was implicated but eventually acquitted. So you see, people continue to have the feeling that justice has not been done in the matter. And you see, it is very difficult to foster peace without justice. I think this is at the heart of the problem in Yendi. But something, having said that, I commend the committee of eminent chiefs presided by the Otumfuo. Their efforts are commendable. But you see, in conflict resolution, I think the stakeholder participation is key and should never, ever be relegated to the background. When you do that, you can't have a lasting solution to the problem. From the Otumfuo's own narrative, when I couldn't make it to the Jubilee House. Of course, we're invited. And the Deputy Attorney General also says he couldn't make it. But watching the video footage, you could see the frustration written on the face of the Otumfuo. Certain key personalities who have crucial roles to play in the resolution of the conflict were not in attendance, even though, according to the Otumfuo, they had been invited. What does that tell you?
Who are these?
He mentioned the Kugana. Yeah. But the Kugana traditionally is the head of the Andani clan, the Andani royal gate. So if the head of one of the gates was not in attendance and Otumfuo has issues with that, what does that tell you? It means that we have a long way to go. Because you posed the question and Kweku was optimistic and prayed that something good should come out of of course, roadmap which has been ruled out. We've seen that before in 2006. It didn't work. Sitting from where I am sitting, something, I can foresee this roadmap also running into troubles if we don't get all the stakeholders involved. And something who says the regent doesn't play a role. Who is the regent? The regent is the son. In fact, he's the acting overlord of Dagbon. And we're saying that when it comes to the performance of the funerals of former overlords, the acting overlord has no role to play. He has a crucial role to play. And so for me, he's an important stakeholder whose participation may hold the key to unlocking success so far as the Dagbon crisis is concerned. Martin also made a very useful point about the need to ensure that certain towns in Dagbon, all right, the occupants of the skins there are substantive chiefs. I have also been told that, look, quite a number of towns in Dagbon, including Tolong, Gushewu, and like he said, Myang and the rest, they are all having regents now. And that for you to perform the funerals of Ayana, those key towns must have substantive chiefs because they play certain roles. And the regents don't play those roles. You have to have people who have been selected and then skilled as the substantive chiefs. So most of the arguments that have been made are that, look, you can't announce the dates for the performance of the funerals of the two former overlords without, first and foremost, causing the funerals of the chiefs of Tolong, Gushewu, and other vacant skins within the Dagbon state to be performed. And that the performance of those funerals must precede the performance of the funerals of the two former overlords of Dagbon. So these are issues that should engage the attention of all of us. You see, the state, and I'm happy the Deputy Attorney General is here. In fact, he has responsibility for prosecutions. They should not rest on their oars. After all, crimes, statutes of limitations do not apply to the commission of crimes. We can continue to investigate this matter.
Even when you commit a crime and you are said to have committed a crime,
yes,
it can take 1,000 years. You'll be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
That's what he meant by statute of limitations.
Yes. So my plea, my appeal, fortunately he's here, is that we should continue to make some effort. Who knows, one day we may simply just stumble upon some evidence which would result in the conviction of at least one person. You know, about close to 40 people died, including the overlord himself. So the state has failed in that regard. If you ask me, I'll tell you the Woku Commission also failed. All of us have failed.
Let's tone down no one. They see
You
how
see,
we can make
but I am appealing for calm. I know it's painful. The last time I saw about 50 of the sons and daughters of the late Yana Yakubu Andani hold a press conference in Tamale. They even staged a demonstration. They said they have become fatherless. Some of them cannot even now afford to pay their school fees because the overlord was their breadwinner, etc. I mean, it was not a good scene at all. So what that means is that the state could say, let us pay some form of reparation. After all, we all saw that in the when the commission that was set up to look into past atrocities, the National Reconciliation Commission. I think the idea was to bring an end to certain nagging issues and atrocities which had been committed in the past. Can the government think about doing something similar in the case of the Yana, so that some form of reparation is paid by the state to the relatives of the deceased, including the Yana himself, if it is the case that we cannot uncover evidence which will result in the conviction of those who committed the gruesome murders in 2002.
There was a reconstruction of the palace. That's not enough, right?
Well, that was a step in the right direction. A regent was also installed.
Right.
The Yana himself was given a befitting barrier.
Right.
These were all recommendations.
And there were so many people who claimed they had evidence.
Yes.
They were videos.
Yeah. They were useful. Kweku, you know,
is referring to the famous reference.
Kweku, you know, the four of us are lawyers. I mean, in a criminal trial.
Kweku and this video matter.
How can you prosecute such
The burden of establishing the guilt of an accused person is very high.
I hear you.
And so
I
sometimes what we
was
hear in the media.
I was giving a caution to you, the politicians, last week, or when was it? When you mount the political platform and you say we will prosecute them. And this matter, the same thing was said.
The same thing.
We will find them and prosecute them. And then you make the life of an attorney general difficult. Because you have done your politics and then you come into power and then your members begin to attack the attorney general and say prosecute because you said you prosecute. You haven't prosecuted. And there is not a scintilla of evidence to prosecute anybody. Currently, these guys are the attorney general department. That's the same thing they are suffering. We have seen the NPP groups attack them and say they should do prosecutions. And we have seen Otumfuo write and say that they don't know what they are talking about. Okay, so let's come to the Deputy Attorney General. Now, what do you think? I want you to, we hear you, and then we take a break. We'll return. I hope we can do a final bit of this and look at a bit of the final issues on how we can urge everyone to come on board, despite their pain and the disagreements.
Well, Samson, thank you very much. I would like to begin from where my brother began. That ordinarily, I would not like to discuss this in detail, knowing very well the passion, the sentiments and other things of individuals, the sensitivities and etc. of this protracted conflict. But you see, those of us who come from the north know that Dagbon forms a very central part of the north.
Right.
It's like sort of a gateway to accessing the north and all that. And so when something affects Dagbon, then it affects the entire 3 regions of the north. So first, I would like to sound a caution that in discussing this issue, not in this your powerful studio alone, but beyond here, we should all be extra cautious and careful, not to inflame passions. You know, I have heard quite a number of, especially those of us in the elite or political class who wield a lot of influence. Our utterances can trigger a lot of problems. And so we ought to be guided and measured in whatever we do to ensure that we don't run into that difficulty. You've spoken about the criminality and all that, and the fact that people have to be found and prosecuted. Uncle Kweku has referred to people who said they had tapes and etc. And we've also talked about the fact that we've been flagged because people said we have not prosecuted A or B or C. All basically because there's no evidence. If you have any evidence against a particular person, you make it available to the security agencies. Investigations are conducted, and we do our mandate in accordance with Article 88. That's all about it. But in reference to this particular issue, Samson, there's a particular article, I don't know whether you read it, written by Professor Kofi Kumado on the Dagbon crisis, as it were. And when I read it, at the end of reading that article, I was really confused. Why? Because he virtually painted a picture as though the conflict has no solution.
Meanwhile, he is a conflict resolution
expert. I mean, that's what I gathered, as though it has no solution. And you see, Samson, I was just thinking about this conflict, and I thought about a principle we all learned in the law school, the utilitarian principle, Jeremy Bentham. I am just of the thinking that at the end, what will solve this problem may be to take a decision that will satisfy the greater majority. You may never have a situation where everybody will accept a decision taken on this issue. Never, ever. Whatever decision you take, there will be dissenting opinions and all that. But we should be looking at the peace, unity of Dagbon, situated in the context of Ghana. When we look at it from that perspective, people will move away from entrenched positions, and we reach certain compromises that will enable us put this particular issue behind us for good. From 2001 till date, 17 years, a very prosperous and strong Dagbon has suffered a lot. Many young people, in fact, people who were not born at the time and were born thereafter, some of them are 17 years today. And the conflict has no solution. They've seen no Yana. Time has come for us to all move away from our entrenched positions and have some compromises to ensure that we carry through. I also listened carefully to my brother make a very important point about trust in all these matters. Whether or not the first group allowed to go in to perform the funeral will immediately vacate the place. I mean, of course, you know, in matters like this, the state is directly involved to ensure that the right things are done. It will be bad faith for you to agree on a roadmap, go in and say that after I have gone in, I have finished, but I won't go out. That's complete bad faith.
You should be uprooted.
Yes. I mean, in that case, the state will employ all measures necessary to ensure that the roadmap is adhered to. Otherwise, how will you just go in? You have finished performing your role, and then the roadmap says, go out, let the other person come in, you say you won't go out. Then the state has to take action at that state. So I can assure you that there are good intentions, that when it is performed and they go out and the second group goes in, then they will then go to the next step of looking for a substantive Yana. And all of us have expressed our predicament about the fact that certain positions that were supposed to be occupied by substantive chiefs are vacant. All that, there are customary ways of going about it. And they will have to go through the Dagbon custom to ensure that these people are put in place for us to move forward. But the thorny issues which have not been resolved, and remember that if you don't resolve those issues, the other ones cannot come. The issues are that in our culture and custom, Samson, you know that from where we come, when the funeral rites of a person has not been performed, it is said that he hasn't gone to the ancestral world.
Right.
And that is still hovering around.
Yeah.
That's the belief, that's our custom, that's our tradition. So the two late Yanas, as it stands now, having gone to the ancestral home because the funerals have not been performed.
Yeah.
So you see that all the efforts by the eminent chiefs and the support given by government is geared towards ensuring that that thorny issue of having the two funerals, performed, are at the forefront. So when they have, the two funerals have been performed, the other issues will come up naturally, and one after the other they will be tackled. I'm just making a passionate appeal, Samson, that those who are holding the press conferences and the others should all look at Dagbon, the interest of Dagbon, the peace of Dagbon, and the peace of Ghana. We cannot just continue with business as usual. That His Excellency Nana Addo's government or the Committee of Eminent Chiefs, will come to pass again, no solution. In future, another government comes, no solution. There must be a point at which we must say the Dagbon crisis is what? Over. And decisions will have to be taken, and sometimes not necessarily satisfying everybody, because as I said earlier, it will be practically impossible for every person to be satisfied with a decision to be taken in respect of a matter like this, complicated matter such as this. You know, while seated here, I got a message from a very prominent lawyer from there who drew attention to certain things and said that he initially also had some entrenched positions, but upon a sober reflection, he has come to the conclusion that the roadmap is good, and that going by the roadmap and performing the funerals will pave the way for the other practices to come up so that lasting peace can be restored. Okay. So I'm making a passionate appeal, as I indicated. Looking at what Martin read, the decision of the Supreme Court, very clearly, the conclusion is important. Whatever was said in that case is equally important. And even as I said, the lawyer made reference to the cases you are talking about. I didn't even know that there had been decisions by the High Court and Court of Appeal in respect of this matter.
And somebody is also now saying that they agree that they should let the appeal go. I mean, they let it so that the peace process can go.
Yeah, you see, so you see something.
Yes.
I think this issue has been so thorny. And I heard the Otumfuo himself make a very categorical statement. He said no president. No president. He made reference to all the past presidents, and that no president could influence him to do anything. So what they are doing is making an inquisition to find out what is the best way forward. Remember that among the eminent chiefs, you have the Nayiri himself is there, and I think Yabu is there. These are also two powerful persons in the north, working with the Otumfuo himself to ensure that we have lasting peace. So, especially the media, I think, for example, that sometimes we grant opportunity to people and they inflame passions. That's where we should stay away from. Okay. You know, where the elites, politicians, somebody may think that for so long as the conflict continues, he may benefit. So he will prefer that it continues so that he will benefit. But we should look at the supreme interest of the people of Dagbon and Ghana.
We'll take a break at this point. When we return, I'll give my guests about 2 minutes each to wrap up, you know, nicely on this issue. And then we will proceed to find out how come 21 police officers were shooting 7 young men, alleging that they were robbers, and it appears they clearly were not, and they killed them. So what should happen? We'll be right back. Platform. My guests Abdul Malik Kubako, Martin Pebu, Pamka, and James Agalga. Joseph Dimdiok Prenka, the Deputy Attorney General. Now, we have been talking about Dagbon, and many people have also expressed a lot of, you know, interest in this particular matter, and the overwhelming, you know, the messages overwhelmingly are about people of Dagbon giving peace a chance. Giving peace a chance. This has failed too many times. So let me hear from all of you once again in 2 minutes each. Let's see how you can preach.
Okay, good.
Okay, so from Martin.
Okay, so I wish to state that since the discussion started, there's this thing about the Court of Appeal case I mentioned. A very prominent lawyer in one of the camps has indicated that the parties agreed that they would move forward. In other words, though he cannot confirm that the appeal has been formally withdrawn, he is saying, that's one side, that they've agreed that they will no longer contest the case in court. That's at least once he's stating so, knowing where he's quite sensitive, I mean, he's in a sensitive position, I should state that I cannot independently confirm. But he also says, at least formally, he cannot confirm that the appeal has been withdrawn. But now, so bottom line, as we stated, the number one thing on this whole matter is that I think the key thing is about measures to put in place to ensure that when the Abudus go in to perform the funeral, they will come out, so to speak.
There's a history that guides them.
Exactly.
That when it happened once.
Yes.
Some people went in the Bewa Palace, which is the real thing.
Exactly.
And decided that we are sorry, we can't come out again.
So for me, that is the whole thing. So we need a specific commitment. The president, this one, I think it will take the president to also come in with Otumfuo to come and support the process. Then there will be an agreement done openly for them to sign. You remember, just like 2016, the election, the Peace Council, I think something close to that. And as I mentioned, once that is done, we also have history that, as I stated, earlier, in Kwame Nkrumah's time, when the Chinese issue came, they took policemen to the Asante Council. There were 80 policemen that prevented people from entering. Maybe Uncle Kweku, because he's better at this history, can educate us more. So when people are sure that, yes, if government says we will go in and pull out anybody who refuses to come out, that will help to, sow confidence to make sure that the parties will accept. Because without any firm assurance in the form of an agreement openly for the whole country to know that this is what government will do if the Abudus go in and don't return, we are not likely to make progress.
What do you say about the suggestion of some sort of reparation?
Yes.
You know, because
yes.
even though we have not found anybody to say, you did this killing, you must take this blame and so on and so forth, we should be able to say, look, for your loss,
yes,
you take that, you take that. What do you need?
Yes.
We can assist you. The
yes.
state. Do you think that should also be considered?
Yes, very, very, very important. Yes, actually, it's good Agalga brought it up, because yesterday I was talking to a senior lawyer who is also in one of those near them. Yes, and I mentioned it to him actually that in all this while, we haven't seen about, actually I put it raw, that government hasn't given them any money, but the technical word is reparations. Yes, so it's good Agalga brought it. It's also very important, because at least though we know money cannot resurrect their kinsman, cannot resurrect the Yana, the two sides and all that, at least, but there should be some reparations.
Okay.
That will help.
Okay, and maybe the politicians too may have learned their lessons by now, that this issue is not an issue for political football.
Yes.
Yes, it's part of the things that the UNDP and others who have been supporting these processes of resolution have been worried about.
Okay.
Yes, Kweku.
Quite an interesting proposition in this case of the case of the reparations. I'm sure we haven't seen the perpetrators, but we're looking at victims.
Right.
The victims also cut across.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah, that's why I say both sides.
Yeah, so perhaps we'll have to take a look at that. But see, the report, of course, we've done these discussions without the report.
Right.
We don't have the report. I was wondering whether it would be too big a deal to ask for the publication of the report to provide an informed basis for public discussions. And of course, to cure any mischief that may be perpetrated by others. So maybe that's all I'll ask.
The last one was not reported,
Sometimes,
but we got copies. So maybe you are a master in these things.
I could intercept, but that's not a substitute for publication, for public perusal.
Okay.
I hope you get a point.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. Okay, thank you. Yes, Penka. Do you support, first of all, the idea of, some reparation?
Well, it's not far-fetched.
Okay.
I can say that it's not far-fetched, because we are making a search for a lasting solution. If it is one of the ways by which we can fast-track it, why not?
Okay.
It could be taken on board and all that. And I think that as we communicate now, and others are communicating, the eminent chiefs and government will look at all those options, just to make sure that at least people, the anger and all that are soothed, and people are, they move away from the entrenched positions. But for now, all that I can say is that nobody, and I repeat, nobody in Dagbon and beyond should do anything to disturb the peace. We are pleading with everyone. Okay. We have one country, Ghana, where all of us are living. Let's just give the law, rules and regulations a chance, so that at the end we'll arrive at something good for all of us. And at the end, posterity will have something good to write for us. We cannot continue to allow this very, very, very thorny issue to last forever. We just need to move away from entrenched positions and get compromises to get the issue resolved. I can appreciate and understand, as we are even here, messages are coming in from different angles, clarifying issues and all that. I don't know, somebody even indicated that one of us made a categorical statement that Kugana is in charge of, no, it's from an Andani, it's an Andani or something, and he's supposed to be in charge. The person, they have sent a clarification that he's somebody who leads the selection committee for Eyana, that does not necessarily come from a particular gate. Okay. Somebody has sent that clarification.
Very sensitive about these things.
Very, very, very. So that's why I'm saying that we should be measured in whatever we say about this
They should also understand and forgive, particularly the media, that the issues sometimes are so confusing
and complicated.
And the media may make these mistakes, but the slightest error, they don't take it lying down at all. Yeah.
To put things
Something.
in perspective.
It's difficult, but one day I know peace will be restored in Dagbon. It's on the horizon. it would happen. I commend highly the efforts of the Committee of Eminent Chiefs, but I would appeal to them to do well and get all the stakeholders involved. They should not give up. It's not easy at all. They should get the regent, the Kampankuyana, back to the negotiating table. The Kugana, they should not give up on him. He gave a reason why he couldn't attend the meeting that was held at the Jubilee House.
It's not exactly a new reason,
right?
A new excuse.
Yes.
Because I told you, I followed the process throughout for the first time when they got to the end of it.
Yes.
And when we're doing that, I remember how we kept being told not to report everything that that happened.
Okay.
And there were times that tempests fled.
Wow.
And Otumfuo himself, there were times that you could see he was uncomfortable and would get back and try and soothe tempest and come back, into the main and try and bring them together again.
Wow.
And some of those things, we never had to report them, So,
So they should continue. But my final words are directed at the two royal gates. They should remember that they have a common ancestry.
Okay.
And that they are brothers and sisters after all. That is bottom line. And with those words, they should allow peace to prevail in Dagbon. Look, Dagbon is one of the oldest kingdoms in Ghana. They have a rich history.
Right.
If you read about the history of Dagbon, you'll be marveled how Yanas resisted German invasions and so on. They have cause to be proud of themselves. And so we are all looking up to them. We draw a lot of inspiration.
They have a constitution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Constitution.
Absolutely. So they should allow peace to prevail, and that kingdom, if they allow peace to prevail, that kingdom would take back its proper place in our history as a nation.
All right. So at this juncture, we could only say that the Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II Committee of Eminent Chiefs also deserve applause for the job they have done so far. It's not been easy since 2002 when President Akufo, set it up, and all other presidents who have come have, collaborated with them and sought to assist them to do their job. So Otumfuo Osei-Tutu II himself, the Yagbon Wura, Tuntumba Boresa Sulemana, and Sulemana Japa, the first, and Nayiri Na Bohogu Abdullahi Mahami Shirega. All of them. Let's hope that peace will eventually come to Dagbon. We'll take a break. When we return, we ask what happens to the 21 police officers who lied that the 7 young men in Asawase were armed robbers, and that's why they shot them to death. According to what government has informed all of us, the nation, that's not correct. So what happens to them?